Okay, we're going to take a look at using Excel spreadsheets. So an Excel app might look like this. So you can also use Google Sheets. My favorite is the Excel. However, if you don't have that, this is very similar to Google Sheets. So basically what a spreadsheet is a way of incorporating information, usually used for numbers and data tables, into specific cells. So as I click around here on each cell, you will notice up in the upper left corner, it identifies the cell based on the column letter and the row number. So this cell is C10. And you can type, add information anywhere into each cell. So what I want to show you is how to use a spreadsheet to make a very, very nice looking professional data table, and one that you can make very quickly. So one thing to notice about the cells is when you can add more cells. So you can go up into the insert and I can add another column. We'll kind of come back and do that. So here's all your things you can do. You can add actually your insert columns and rows are right over here back at the home page. So you can do an insert row and column, insert another cell, insert another sheet, which would be down here. I have this as sheet 1. I can add within my same file. If I click on this plus sign, I can add another sheet and have sheet 2 and so on. Each one of these sheets can be named. I can rename it right here and call it data table or something that I want, which is kind of nice when you have multiple sheets in one file. When I am typing, notice you have the same kind of tools that you would have in Microsoft Word, where you can center things. What's nice about a cell is you can center it horizontally and vertically. You can change its font color. You can fill in the cell with a certain color. This is my favorite. You can put some borders in, different text fonts, and so on. Okay, so we're going to play around with a lot of this right now. So one thing I just want to show you, I'm in my cell. I'm going to start typing. I'm going to type a sentence. All right, so what you'll notice right away is it doesn't look like any different than Microsoft Word. I just typed a sentence, right? It just carried over and bled into the other cells. What I'm typing is located up here. So if I want to change it, I actually need to come up here to spell something, if I made a misspelling or if I want to change anything, I'm going to put an exclamation point right here, something like that. And when I click back out, it puts it back into here. This information is in cell B4. So that's right there. If I go into C4 and I start typing again, notice that it overrides it. But this is still there. This is just overriding it, right? So it'll bleed over into another cell unless you start typing in the other cell. So what can we do about this extra information that's here, right? So let's go back to think about our data table. We want to do something like we wanted to measure distance in units of meters, right? So let's say I type that in. Well, that's going to bleed into this cell, but maybe in this cell I want to type in time, right? We wanted 1, 2, 3, and that's going to be all time measurements. Okay? So let me just show you one thing that's really cool and why we use this as data tables is that cell wasn't big enough. So I can do what's called a wrap text right here. I can wrap it within the size of the cell. When I do that, I can also center it both vertically and horizontally. So already you can see how nice that looks. I can highlight all my cells and go back to my home and do the same thing, center them horizontally and vertically. So those look really nice and neat already. This whole title, this is all going to be time. And over here, I guess I want to type in the word average, right? So we're going to have an average time. So as you saw, I was able to highlight all these and do the same formatting for all of those, or you can just be in an individual cell and do the same formatting with that individual cell. But if you know what your formatting is going to be, you can highlight them all. Just be careful that when you highlight, watch this very carefully. Notice my mouse has a hollow cross. When I left click on this and I highlight, that's highlighting everything. And then whatever I choose to do, if I change my font color, maybe I want all those to be a bright blue, right, in bold, something like that, then it's going to do it for everything, right? However, if when I'm there, I have my cross like this, and I do something like that, it drags and drops it. So if my cross has the arrows on it, it's going to actually like cut and paste it, right? So you want to be careful of that. So this hollow arrow allows you to highlight. The arrow with the crosses is it drag and drop. It's going to pull it and drop it. This dark cross, if I go to the bottom right corner and I drag it down, will copy it. So that's a copy. So be careful when you're trying to highlight that you don't have the cross in the wrong setting. Okay, so you may not want to do that. And that can be very frustrating if you're not familiar with that. All right, so another really nice feature as we're trying to make data tables is I want the word time above all of these. So I can actually highlight all those cells and go up here into my format and do a merge and center. So I highlighted them all and I'm going to merge and center, and that's going to make that look like it's one big cell. Now, why do I want to do that? Because I want all of those 1, 2, and 3 in average to have the title of time, right? In units of seconds. So now that is all centered on top of all those. I'm going to go back and use the same blue, right? Boldface, not italicized. There we go. And I probably want to put a title up above the whole thing. So I'm going to highlight all of this and put a title above it all. And I'm going to change that, do a merge and center, and title this The Speed of a Toy, right? So that was the title of our whole thing. So since it's a title, I might want that to be a bigger font. So I can highlight that and make that a bigger font, boldface, and so on. Now I have a very nice looking data table. Now I want to put in my numbers. So notice when I go to print this, I go to print, none of those columns or rows show up. I don't see any lines. All I get is what I have typed in there. If I want the lines to show up and I want those to be part of my data table, what you want to do is you need to highlight them. Make sure you go to your home, and this is your border right here. If I hit that arrow down, it tells me all my borders I can have. If I do an outside border, it's only going to do an outside border around all that I highlighted. If I want borders between everything, I want to choose all borders. And notice I can change, the font size. I can say how big I want it to be, the line style, and so on. Okay, so you can make it a very thick border. These will give you top, bottom, and so on, all the borders that you want. And I probably then will want a border around all my data, right? So depending on how much data I have, I can go in here, and if I highlighted them all and go to all borders again, now I'm going to get borders around all of that. So if I go back to a print preview, notice now I get my chart. And just like that, I got a nice, neat data table. So as I look at this, there's some things that I'd like to change. The time is a little bit higher above these columns and right there. So I'm going to go back, and there's something I can do here, which is I can make this specific row taller. So by putting my mouse between the two rows of 3 and 4, I just hold it down and I'm going to make that a little taller, but then I'm going to center it vertically. So it puts it a little bit further away from these. I just think that looks better. It puts the title of time up above those. I can certainly put a border around that if I'd like. I might take this border away. So I can go back and take away the border and say no border and just have my titles there. These are awfully small, so I'm actually going to make these taller. So I'm going to highlight all those, and I can come over here to format, right? Row height. So if I choose that, all I have to do is type in the row height that I want. I'm guessing 20. That looks good. Made a little bit bigger, more space to go in there. And same thing, I can number these. Maybe I went from 1 meter, 2 meters, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, even though I think we're only going to do 7. I'm going to highlight this and again, center it, make it look nicer, right? And then we can come along and you can hand put in your data, or we can put in data later once it's all collected. So there's a nice, very nice looking data table that can be made just in minutes. What would also I'd like to see though is that this is printed in the center of the page. So it looks like I need a little bit more space here to push that over. So as I do my print preview, I see that I want this space to be a little wider, right? And what that did when I did a print preview is give me the dotted line of where my edge of my paper is going to be. So I don't know if I want to go that wide, maybe right there, might make it look a little bit more centered when I go to print. And there you go. If I am going to then come back and put in real data here, like let's say this was 1.2 seconds, 1.25, 1.19. Okay, there's my data points that I'm going to put in. Once I get all that put in, let's say 2.7, 2.6. All right, so let's say I'm just making up numbers here. What I want to show you is I can highlight all those. And okay, another very easy thing. I just made up some data here. Let me go ahead and put a few more things here. Obviously, that would be increasing. Okay, so I can highlight all this. And one thing you want in data is you want similar numbers, right? So some of these have 1 decimal, some 2. So just some things that you can do with decimals. This will tell you how many decimal places you can have. You can make them only have 1, more than 1 decimal, 2 decimals. So those that only had, you carried over like this 2.7 becomes 2.70, just makes more sense, right? And again, I can center them all at once. But here's something that's really cool. You can do calculations in an Excel spreadsheet, so you're done, right? So over here, you have some math calculations that you can do. And right up here, these are your functions that you have, right? Addition, subtraction, and you can type in your own formulas. But for this one, I want the average, right? So I'm going to click average and notice that it highlights everything to the left. But I, of course, don't want the 1 in there. I just want underneath the number 1, 2, and 3. So I want to get rid of the distance of 1 meters. So while that's being highlighted, you have to go back and make sure your mouse is that hollow cross. Left click and hold down to drag across to say what you want to average. So notice what's in here is you're going to average C6 all the way to E6, and that's correct. So I hit enter, and there's my average, just like that. And the best part, remember how I told you you could copy that down? It'll copy the average down as well. So I don't have any numbers in here because it's saying division by 0 because there's no numbers there, but these are the averages of those numbers. So just like that, you can get your average calculations as well. Well, hopefully this helps you to make a more professional looking data table. I can go back in here and I can clear those out, right? I think it's under this erase part, right? So I'm going to clear my contents there so you can just see it without my division by 0. Well, good luck with using Excel. So play around with it. It actually is really nice. You can highlight this whole thing, right? I can highlight all this and copy it, put it into another spreadsheet. I can make rows and columns. If I wanted to type a text box, I can again do that, format cells and merge and center all of that and start typing right into here, right? Sentence, right? Remember when I said that if you type it wrong and you go out, I have to come back up here to do my editing. So I have to come up back to the top, right, to do all my editing. It's not that you can click on things down here. I guess you can. And then highlight that. Maybe I want, excuse me, want that to be formatted to be like it's a sentence, right? To the left, up in the upper right corner, upper left corner. When I go to print that, again, it's not going to print these boxes. It's only going to print these. It's going to look like it is a sentence right behind or right below that data table. Well, good luck with Excel. Hopefully you get something out of it. It will change your world as far as saving you some time and giving you the opportunity to make a very professional looking data table.